tutorial.
Hi, I'm Monique from Beads and Basics. Thanks for watching this jewelry tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how you can make your own beadloom bracelets, and I'll show you what you need. So for this bracelet you're gonna need the following materials. Jewel loom. I like to use the plastic ones from Beadloom. You also have wooden ones, but sometimes after you use them a long time they're not as tight anymore, so I prefer this plastic one, and I'll show you in a bit how you can assemble it. And it's just really, it stays good, so it stays strong and tight with the threads you're gonna put there for your bracelet. So this is my favorite jewel loom to use. I have my bead mat so my beads don't go all over the place. Needle, and this is a loom needle, so you can see it's really long and it's very thin. Of course, Miyuki beads. I'm using Miyuki Delicas, and I'm using the Miyuki beads because they're all the same size, and that gives a way nicer result for your loom bracelets. So I'm using 4 colors for this design. I always like to add a sparkle color in my design. Just gives it that bit of extra, so I'm using a copper color today. A clasp, so I'm gonna match it with a rose gold clasp. You're gonna need seal-on thread, jewelry glue, and some scissors. Okay, so if you open your jewel loom, it'll look like this. You have 2 pieces, this and a pin, and the pin, you put them in the hole, and also on the other side, just pull it up a little bit, and like this, it's round and it's tight to put your threads on. So I'll show you how to do it. You're going to take a piece of seal-on thread, take about like 2 meters of thread. And then on the back you have these like small buttons. So just make a simple knot and tie it around the back. Like this. And then we're gonna start with our threads. So my pattern is 7 beads wide, so that means I have to put on 8 strands of threads. So I'm just gonna start here on the left side. I'm gonna skip 1, 2, 1, 2. You can start on the left, in the middle, it's just what you like best. Just make sure that if you skipped a couple on one side, you skip the same amount on the other side. So this is our first thread, and then you just turn around and go around the small knob. And the key with this is that you make sure that the threads are really, really tight the whole time. So just hold it in place the whole time while you put on your threads. And again, around. And back. And now you can see my thread is finished, so just turn it around and hold it with your thumb, and like this you're keeping your threads nice and tight. Otherwise you have to start all over again. I think this will be good. That's 1, 2, 3, 6. Seven, and this is the last one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, so that's my 8 threads, and like this there's room for 7 beads. And now you're just gonna tie a knot to fasten your threads, and make sure while you're making the knot that you keep your threads nice and tight. So just hold it with your thumb. I'm just gonna make a loop. And you can just use a normal knot to tie this. So that's one, just one extra to be sure. Yes, so that's the start of our bracelet, and now we're gonna start with our beads. So now we can start with the actual bracelet. You're gonna take a piece of thread of between 1 and 2 meters. It's just what you find easy enough to work with. So don't make it too long that it's impossible to work with, but don't make it too short, because then you'll be just putting on new threads the whole time. So I usually like to work with about 1.5 meters. Put your thread to through your needle, just pull it through. And then we're gonna start with the first row. So I got my pattern. I've got another video to show you how you can make these patterns really easy using some free software. It's called Beadtool, and I've already made this bracelet in blue and gold, and now I'm gonna make it a bit more fall season with some copper and some browns, but I'm just gonna use the same pattern. So I just made it on the computer, and then I usually just take a picture so I have it on my phone, because it's easy to zoom in and out. And also what I really like, if I work like this, if you've done one row, you can just slide up your pattern for the next row. So it really, like that's really easy to keep track of your pattern. So for this bracelet, we're gonna start really easy. 28 rows are the same, and then we have this nice centerpiece. So the first rows are gonna be really easy. It's gonna be white, brown, 3 salmon, a brown, and a white. Now the first row is really important, and it's also the most tricky, because you have to get 1 bead per row in between your threads. So just put your beads on your needle, and I'm putting my needle under my threads, and then you have to like push it up with your finger like this. So just push up the beads, so there's 1 bead in every row, and then make sure to keep it tight, hold it in place, put your needle all the way through, and you're gonna leave about 30 centimeters of thread to finish it off. And then you're gonna go back with your needle from left to right, and you're gonna go above these threads with your needle. So make sure if you're going from right to left, the thread goes under, And if you're going back from left to right, your thread goes over. So also make sure here at the end that your needle is sticking out over the last thread and not under. And then just pull like this. And that's your first row. So we're just going to continue in the same way. A white, a brown, then 3 salmon, another brown, and another white. So this is my second row. Just put that here. So again, you're gonna stick your needle under your threads and push them up. Use your finger so it's easier, and then push them up. So again, there's a bead in every row. Pull your needle through. Use your finger to keep everything in place. And then you're gonna go back from left to right. And I'm gonna stick my needle above these vertical threads. Like this. Make sure also on the right side the needle sticking through above your vertical threads. And that's your second row of beads. So we're just going to continue like this. This is a fairly easy pattern to start out with because there's a lot of rows that actually have the same pattern. So this is a good one to, if you're just starting out, so you're not focusing on too many different things at the same time. If you have patterns with a lot of zigzags and different figures, and there's a lot of patterns that every row literally is different, so you really have to look at your pattern all the time, because if you made a mistake then you have to take everything out. So I'm just going to continue with this pattern and I'll show you in a bit how I'm working with the middle part. So that's the actual pattern. I won't be able to do the whole bracelet with this one thread, so I'm also going to show you what to do if you ran out of threads and how you can start with a new one. So I'm just gonna continue with this pattern. Okay, so I finished the first 28 rows of my pattern, which are all the same. And now we're gonna start with the centerpiece. So I'm just gonna take the pattern on my phone and just enlarge it a little bit. See where's the beginning? Right there. And then it's white, brown, salmon, copper, salmon, brown, white. And just push these in between the threads. And I'm going back with the needle on top of my vertical threads. Just gonna slide up my pattern a little bit, and I'm gonna continue with the second row, and I'm gonna continue with my bracelet until I have about 30 centimeters of thread left, and then I'll show you how you can finish it and start with a new one. So I'm just a bit over halfway my bracelet. I just passed the middle point of the pattern. I think this color is they're looking really nice together. My thread is getting a bit short. It's about 30 centimeters now. So I finished my last row of beads with this thread, and I'm just gonna leave it for now, and I'm gonna start with a new one. So again, I'm gonna take about 1.5 meters of my Ceylon thread. I'm already over half of the bracelet, so I know if I get the same amount of thread that I started with, that I'll be able to finish the rest of the bracelet with just one thread. Yes, that's it. So just pull your thread through. We're just gonna put that over there, and I'm just gonna continue with the next row of beads. We're just gonna continue the pattern. So that's white, copper, salmon, brown, salmon, copper, white. And we're just gonna do the same as in the beginning. Just put your needle with the threads under your vertical threads. Put your needle through, and again we're gonna leave about 30 centimeters of thread just over there, and we're gonna go back. So actually I'm just continuing. I finished my old thread and I just started with a new one, and I'm just gonna continue as if nothing much happened actually. So we're just gonna continue the pattern. So for the next row, that is brown, white, copper, salmon, copper, white, and brown. Make sure that because we don't want to have any knots over here. So I'm just gonna put that like this so they don't get tangled. And again, just go back with your needle. So you see, there's not really actually a technique for finishing and starting your thread. You're just finishing and starting in the same way, but it's at the end. If you're done with your whole bracelet and your whole pattern, then you're gonna tie the knots and make sure that you don't see the threads anymore. That's all in the end. So while you're busy with your bracelet, you're just continuing with your threads like this. Just make sure they don't get tangled and you're not using too much thread so you get knots, or too little thread, so you don't want to be just every 10 rows starting with a new thread, because that gets messy as well. So we're just gonna continue with our pattern until we're finished, and then I'll show you how you can tie the knots in the threads and finish it off with a clasp. Okay, so I finished the whole pattern for my bracelets. What do you think? I really like these colors. I really like the combination with the copper. So I still have a piece of thread left here. I'm just gonna cut it a little bit short. 30 centimeters is enough thread at the end. So now I'll show you how you can finish up all these loose threads. We're gonna use the same technique for all 4 threads. So I finished my last row of beads, and then I'm gonna put my needle back through a row of beads above the last one. This. And then I'm just gonna turn around, and then I'm gonna stick my needle through the row of beads above, or actually beneath, but the next row. And I'm not gonna put it through all my beads, I'm just gonna put the needle through 2 of my beads, and then I'm gonna go back up. And now we're gonna tie a knot, and you're gonna make the knot around your horizontal threads. So you're just gonna stick your needle under one of the horizontal threads, so you have a small loop, and then you're just gonna put your needle through your loop so you can tie a knot. And make sure the knot is as close to your beads as possible. So that's your first knot. Now we're gonna stick the needle through the 2 beads next to it. And again, we're gonna come up with our needle and then pull. Sometimes maybe you have to pull a little bit harder, but now the small knot that you just made, you just pulled it into the bead next to it. So this is really, at the end you will not be able to see any knots because all the knots will disappear in the beads. So we're just gonna tie another knot. Again, put your needle underneath one of the horizontal threads and then pull. So you've got a knot. And the same here, we're just gonna put our needle through the 2 beads next to it and then pull so the knot disappears in the next beads, like this. And now we're just gonna cut off this thread. So I'm gonna make 2 knots on each row. If your bracelet is a bit broader, you can make some more. But 2 is fine. And you can just cut off your thread. You don't need to glue anything or make more knots. All the knots are now disappeared in your bracelets. So also on the back, you won't be able to see any of them. So that gives it a really clean design. And now we're gonna do the same with these other threads. So this one, we're gonna go 1 row down and then back 2 beads, and the same with the threads in the middle. And then just make sure that the thread that's on top, you're gonna tie the knots down, and the same the reverse for the other thread. The thread that's on the bottom side of your design, you're gonna tie it up like this. So you're just gonna finish all those knots, all those threads in the same way. Okay, so I finished off all my loose threads for the bracelet. Now it's almost done. We just need to put the clasp on. So you're just gonna cut your bracelet from your loom. Like this. And the other side. And that's why it's easier. Don't start with your beads right from the beginning. Just leave a little bit of thread so you have some more room to make some knots. So we're just gonna cut this. And now we're gonna tie all these threads together with a knot. So you're just gonna take 2 threads next to each other and then tie a knot. One, and then the second, we're gonna put it through the loop once and twice, and then pull, and that's your first knot. Then we're gonna take the 2 threads next to those, and you're also gonna tie a knot. 1, and then 2, 4, and then we're also gonna tie the 2 knots that we just made. Those 4 threads, we're also gonna tie them together. So it's these 2. That's our last knot. So this is 1 bundle of knots, and then we're gonna do the same with these 4 threads. So first you're gonna tie these 2 together, then you're gonna tie these 2 together, and then you're gonna tie them all together. And we're gonna do the same on the other side. Okay, so I tied together all the threads with my double knots, and now we're just gonna put some glue on these knots to make it even more secure. I'm just gonna cut the threads a little bit. Not quite yet till the end, but we're just gonna put a little bit of glue on these knots. So it's easy, we only need a tiny little bit of glue, so then I find it easier just to put it on a piece of paper and just take a toothpick, so you can really put the glue only on the knots. This, and the same on the other side. And we're just gonna leave this to dry for about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so I let the glue dry for a little bit, and now we're gonna cut off these threads just above the knot. And just be careful not to cut off part of the knot or accidentally cut into your bracelet. So we're almost done. We just need to slide on these end caps. We're also gonna put some glue in there. So again, we're only gonna need a little bit. Just put some glue on a piece of paper. And you can see these end caps, they're specifically made for these kind of bracelets. It's sort of like a tube. One part's already closed and the other part is open. And you're gonna slide this on top of your knots and the first row of beads. So we're just gonna take some glue and put that in the clasp, just swivel it around a little bit. And you're gonna take your bracelet and you're just gonna slide the clasp between the first and second row of beads. So the knots and the first row, they disappear in the clasp. So just gently slide it over like this. usually the last part. Just make sure that all the knots, everything's nicely tucked in, like this. And then you can just close this by pressing it on the table. And that's it, nice and nicely closed. And we're gonna do the same on the other side. So again, just take some glue, put that in your tube. And then just gently slide it over the last row of your beads. Nice. And again, just close the clasp. So that's your bracelet finished. I hope you liked it. It's a really fun technique because you can just make every kind of pattern that you want. This is more modern. You can also just do pictures or even letters. You can write somebody's name. And we also have another video tutorial on our channel to show you exactly how you can make all these awesome patterns. Or if you want to just try one of ours, we've also got loads on our Pinterest page. I hope you like this one. If you want to make it yourself, you can buy all the materials in our web shop, www.beadsandbasics.com. And if you want to share your creations, you can do that on Instagram using #beadsandbasics. We love to see all the things you make. If you want to see even more jewelry tutorials, subscribe to our channel and hopefully see you next time. Bye bye!